Coming up, concerns raised by business owners as national health insurance draws closer. And another man gunned down here in the capital, so don't go anywhere. The Bahamas Tonight, the weekend edition, starts now.
Now in HD. ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
Good evening, everyone. I'm LaDawn Davis. As the government continues to make preparations for the 2016 rollout of the National Health Insurance Scheme that will make healthcare more accessible to the masses, the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation CEO Edison Sumner spoke to our Cleopatra Murphy about some reservations held by the business community.
Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation CEO Edison Sumner says although local businesses have a clearer understanding of national health insurance, they are still unclear how the program will be funded.
Am I going to be taxed as a business person to pay for this new NHI universal healthcare system? If so, how much am I going to be required to pay? Am I going to be required to pull funds from my staff to help pay for this? And that's a concern.
Government initially announced that it intends to roll NHI out at an estimated cost of $600 million in January 2016, but has since opted to take a phased-in approach, implementing it at a cost of $350 million. With its implementation around the corner, Sumner says businesses are concerned about being overtaxed, especially with the recent rise in minimum wage and the introduction of value-added tax.
Now there's talk about possibly taxing businesses again a percentage of your payroll to pay towards NHI, although that hasn't been fully agreed upon yet. So if that is the case, then the business community is going to have a serious concern about that.
Sumner says at some point there must be a trade-off because businesses must remain profitable. He says for NHI to succeed, it must have the full support of the private sector.
NHI is a whole different creature, right? And it has to be a case where the government has to satisfy itself that the private sector is on board with this, and the private sector has to be assured that the concerns that we have are being properly addressed, and that we are not taxing ourselves out of existence, right? Because if that happens, then the government loses as well, because then their revenue goes down.
Sumner says the Chamber of Commerce has established a National Health Insurance Review Committee and has engaged in discussions with Sanagist International, the consultants for NHI, government, and other stakeholders as it seeks to get more clarity on NHI and the changes that will come with it. Cleopatra Murphy, ZNS Network News.
Bahamians living with disabilities is the focus of attention at the 70th United Nations General Assembly, and tomorrow the government will take a major step to ensure the protection and opportunity for this sector here at home. Tonight, Clint Watson reports from New York on the Prime Minister's drive to ensure the disabled are not overlooked in this country.
It's been a theme of the Prime Minister since taking office to leave no one behind in his governance. And as a father of a special needs son, he knows firsthand the struggle of parents with disabled children, particularly in providing education and a quality life. It's been the major thrust behind the Bahamas ratifying a convention on equality for persons with disabilities on Monday at the United Nations. Well, at the Bahamas Special Town Meeting in New York last week, Mr. Christie reaffirmed his commitment.
But I think of the families who do not have the means that I have to seek the advice, but who are subjected to extraordinary challenges. And I articulate philosophically a view that to the extent that our country has resources available to the government, we cannot allow these, particularly these single mothers without any kind of help, to be held hostage to these extraordinary circumstances facing their children.
A key component to ensuring greater value for the disabled will come through the Ministry of Education, Science and Technology.
And therefore, the Minister of Education, the Ministry of Education must somehow find it necessary to import into its work the protection of every child. We even sat and spoke and said there are children whose learning is impaired because they go to school hungry.
The Prime Minister's message and theme of quality life was carried over as he addressed the United Nations General Assembly Special Summit on Sustainable Development Goals.
The Bahamas is pleased that the new agenda speaks to the sustainable developmental challenges that we all face. It represents a firm political commitment to leave no one behind and to ensure a sustainable future for present and future generations. My government has committed itself in the area of education to serve the needs of our population in all demographics, both able and disabled, young and old. We recognize the continued role of education in supporting efforts for economic growth and poverty eradication, as well as acting as a tool for socialization.
Social Services Minister, the Honorable Melanie Griffin, will represent the Bahamas at the official event on Monday at the United Nations when the ratification on disability will take place. At the United Nations, Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
One man is dead tonight following a shooting taking place in one of New Providence's challenged communities, Nassau Village. This latest incident brings the homicide count to 112 for the year. Oscar Adderley was there.
Gunshots rang out along Alexandria Boulevard in Nassau Village around 9:30 Sunday morning. When our news team arrived after 10, police had cordoned off the area with yellow caution tape and combing the area as they conducted their initial investigations. Officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Paul Roll.
They met a male lying on the ground suffering from gunshots to the body. EMS also came here and pronounced this male lifeless.
Now reports are a man was leaving the barbershop and walking in an easterly direction when two armed men in a blue Hyundai pulled up, exited the vehicle, and shot him. It was at this point the victim collapsed. Chief Superintendent Roll shared what else officers discovered.
Persons contacted us and reported finding this vehicle down in the Taylor Street area in South Beach.
As officers look to bring these suspects to justice for this crime soon, Roll made this appeal to anyone that could assist them with their investigations.
We appeal to members of the public who would have seen anything here this morning and who were able to provide some information to us to help us in solving this latest homicide here in the Nassau Village area this morning. Okay, a number of persons that were about, and I appeal to them to come forward and bring whatever information they may have.
The victim is identified as 24-year-old Shenandoah Seymour of Price Street, Nassau Village. This homicide count is now 112 for the year. Oscar Adderley, ZNS Network News.
More being released on that inmate found dead at the Department of Corrections. Around noon on Saturday, remand inmate Christopher Andrew Camp was found unresponsive in his cell. The institution's medical officer was contacted and on arrival conducted an examination. At the conclusion of the examination, the inmate was pronounced dead. The cause of death is unknown. Her Majesty's coroner and the Royal Bahamas Police Force were contacted. The matter is under investigation and no further information is available at this time. The release ends stating all other inmates at the Bahamas Department of Correctional Services remain in safe custody. Police in Inagua are investigating the circumstances surrounding the discovery of the badly decomposed body of a man in bushes on that island yesterday. The victim is believed to be a 41-year-old resident who returned to the island a few months ago. He was reportedly last seen on September 13th. The remains will be brought to the capital and an autopsy will be performed to determine the exact cause of death. Minister of National Security, the Honorable Dr. Bernard Nottage, responding to the proposed curfew recommendation made by Progressive Liberal Party Chairman Bradley Roberts recently. With 112 murders already for the year, Dr. Nottage says there is no real method that one can suggest that he hasn't either come up with or considered to utilize in the war on crime in this country.
Everybody has a solution for crime, and everybody thinks that their idea can work. We have to go a little deeper than that. We have to look at where these methods have been used, how successful they've been, which of them are appropriate for a country like the Bahamas or an island like New Providence. And so curfews are something that we have considered. We've considered.
Dr. Nottage says a curfew for the island of New Providence, where most crimes are committed, is not the only method that has been considered to decrease the high level of crime.
We've considered gun amnesties, we've considered lockdowns, we've considered a lot of things, and some of these things are in fact being carried out without announcing them to the public. But there has been no decision about curfews.
Stay close, we've got more news right after this quick break.